Your obsession with material wealth is one of the greatest illusions that blind you to the true nature of happiness. You think that by accumulating possessions, you are accumulating peace of mind, but with each new possession, a new shackle binds you. Think of the man who owns a ship and fears the storm, or the one who has a treasure and fears the thief. Your wealth brings with it the anxiety of loss, and your heart, instead of being filled, is emptied. It is a heavy burden that prevents you from flying. The true coin of happiness, the only one that never loses its value, is virtue. Justice, courage, wisdom, and temperance. These are the goods that make you truly rich. And their greatest marvel is that they cannot be stolen, nor confiscated by tyrants, nor corroded by time. The virtuous person is rich anywhere, in any circumstance, for their wealth resides in their character, in their soul, and not in the fleeting circumstances of the world. Why then do so many of you confuse happiness with the incessant pursuit of pleasure and comfort? This is a race without end, like a thirsty person drinking salt water. With each pleasure achieved, your soul yearns for a greater pleasure, for a more intense sensation. Happiness, my friends, is not the absence of suffering or the constant presence of pleasure, but the harmony of the soul achieved through a life of integrity and purpose. Unlike money, whose value is imposed by others, happiness, as a coin, has an intrinsic value. The rich person who boasts of their fortune depends on the applause of others to feel worthy. But the person who is content with their virtue does not seek the approval of others. Their wealth is measured by their own conscience and their own reason. They are the sole judge of their fortune, and this is a priceless freedom that no one can buy or sell. And what is remarkable about virtue is that it can be forged by anyone, regardless of their condition. The poorest of slaves can be richer than the most powerful of kings if their soul is more virtuous. True wealth is not a matter of luck or birth, but of personal choice and effort. It is an achievement that is within the reach of all who dedicate themselves to knowing themselves and perfecting the soul. The greatest poverty of all, I tell you, is ignorance. The person who lives in ignorance is a slave to their passions, their fears, and the opinions of others. They think that happiness is in accumulating, but they do not know what is truly valuable. Philosophy, the love of wisdom, is the path to wealth. It is what gives you the clarity to discern good from evil, what is valuable from what is useless, and what frees you from the slavery of a meaningless life. Imagine a magnificent ship, adorned with jewels and gold, but whose hull is rotten and full of holes. In the first storm, it will sink. The person who accumulates wealth and does not cultivate their soul is exactly like this. Your soul is your ship, and virtue is its solidity. True wealth is the security of a strong character, capable of facing the storms of life without breaking. If these words are making you reflect on the true value of life, and if you feel that the pursuit of virtue is the only one worth it, I invite you to like this video. By doing so, you help bring this message to more hearts that, like yours, long for a life of meaning. To continue the journey in search of wisdom, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment about which virtue you consider the most valuable. Your participation is the key to a community of free minds. Now, my friends, let us continue our journey. The true measure of a person is not in what they possess, but in what they are. A person who is virtuous and just does not fear poverty, for their happiness does not reside in having, but in being. They know that their most valuable wealth is their ability to think, to act with righteousness, and to have a clean conscience. This is a fortune that markets cannot value, and that no event can devalue. The constant search for more, the perpetual dissatisfaction with what one has, is the sign of a poor soul. On the other hand, the person who is content with what their virtue allows them to have is the truly rich person. Contentment is a state of the soul that frees you from the tyranny of desires and allows you to appreciate the beauty of life in its simplicity. It is a treasure that cannot be bought. By the way, the person who dedicates themselves to accumulating material wealth and neglects their soul is like a potter who dedicates themselves to beautifying their jar with adornments, but does not bother to check if it is broken inside. What good is a beautiful jar if it cannot hold water? Your soul is the jar, and virtue is the water. What good is a life full of luxury if the soul is empty? Many of you seek pleasure as the coin of happiness, but pleasure is a tyrant that holds you captive. It promises you satisfaction, but gives you only a temporary pause before forcing you to seek more. Virtue, on the other hand, is a benevolent master that frees you. It gives you the peace of mind that comes from knowing you are doing what is right, regardless of the circumstances. The life dedicated to material wealth is a life of constant anxiety and fear. You fear loss, bankruptcy, criticism, because your happiness always depends on something that can be taken from you at any moment. But the life dedicated to virtue is a life of peace. Your happiness depends only on your choices, on your character, and that is something no one can steal from you. The person who is rich in virtue has the power to adapt to any situation. They do not despair in poverty, for they know that their true wealth is not in possessions. They are not corrupted by wealth, for they know that their true value is not in what they have. They are master of themselves, and this inner mastery is the most valuable coin of all, for it frees them from the shackles of the world. Happiness is not something you find, but something you create. It is the result of a life of self-knowledge and self-mastery. It is the flourishing of the soul that comes from living in harmony with your own rational nature. It is the reward for doing good, for being just, for being courageous. It is your masterpiece sculpted with your daily actions. Society teaches you to value appearance, what is visible to the eyes. But I tell you that true wealth is invisible. It resides in the purity of your thoughts, in the nobility of your intentions, in the goodness of your actions. Your reputation can be destroyed by a slander, but your character, your true wealth, can only be destroyed by you. The person who seeks happiness in material wealth is like a blind person seeking light in a dark well. Their search is useless, for the light they seek is within them, in their own soul. True happiness is not something that is achieved outside of oneself, but something that is discovered within oneself through reflection and philosophy. Do not compare yourselves to others, for comparison is the thief of joy. The rich person who compares themselves to the richer person feels poor, but the person who is content with their own virtue has no need to compare. Their measure is their own conscience, and their goal is to be the best they can be, not the best the other is. True wealth is in not needing more. The person who has enough for their basic needs and is content with it is the richest person in the world. They are not a slave to artificial desires, to fleeting trends, to social status. They are free, and their freedom is their greatest fortune. Philosophy is not a pastime for idleness, but the pursuit of virtue, which is the only source of happiness. It is the only thing that teaches you the difference between what is truly valuable and what is merely desirable. A life without philosophy, I tell you, is a life of poverty, no matter how full your coffers are with gold. The person who is rich in virtue is a good for society. They do not seek only their own good, but also the good of their fellow humans. They are just in their transactions, honest in their words, and kind in their actions. They are like a source of pure water in a desert, and their wealth benefits all who surround them. Therefore, my friends, may your pursuit of wealth not be to accumulate possessions, but to cultivate your soul. May your most valuable coin be virtue, and may your fortune be the happiness that comes from a life of integrity and wisdom. This is the only wealth worth pursuing.